For Christmas, for Christmas, my partner and I received one of those calendars which features no less than 12 photos of various scenic locations from around England. We started off thinking maybe we could take the bikes out to a few of these places, but then that quickly changed into what if we went to each of those places during the month that they appear in the calendar. It means we're never going to be too far away from another bike trip out. It means the bikes aren't going to be stuck in the garage for months on end. We're going to get to see a few new places, maybe discover a few new biking roads along the way. Plus, we are relatively centrally located within England itself, so none of these places should be too far away from us. At least that's what we thought. After we plotted all the destinations on a map, we found that other than one, which is in the Peak District, not too far away from us, exactly half of the destinations are on the south coast. One of them is practically up in Scotland, and the other four are about a 3 or 4 hours ride away if we stick mostly to motorways. Now, travelling down a motorway for 4 hours doesn't sound like the most exciting of rides for us. So we decided that if we're going to do this, we're going to avoid motorways as much as possible. This will be easy enough during the summer with the longer days and the warmer weather. However, in the earlier and later months of the year, there's a lot less daylight to play with, so we may need to incorporate a few motorways just so we don't get stuck out in the dark. So, January, the first stage in this year-long endeavour. Our destination for this month is St Thomas Becket Church in Fairfield, Kent, which is about a 45-minute drive away from Eurotunnel Folkestone. By avoiding motorways and toll roads, we're going to be adding at least 2 hours onto the expected travel time, and that's without taking into account stopping for fuel and stopping for breaks ourselves. And we all know that an expected travel time is usually quite an underestimate. So that really does add a bit of pressure with the daylight concern that we already have at this time of year. The major obstacle of this journey is this little town here called London, and this big road that encircles it, often referred to as the M25. At the risk of starting to sound like an episode of Auto Shenanigans, technically this section of what is referred to as the M25 is actually the A282. Google Maps doesn't avoid it when you tell it to avoid motorways, but it still feels a bit like cheating. We set off at around 9 AM from Hinckley and followed along the route. We were using Google Maps as a sat-nav, which does come with some quirks for this sort of trip. We've tried a few different navigation apps in the past, but ultimately Google Maps seems to suit us best. However, the problem with it is that without some coding trickery, as far as we're aware at least, there is no way to plot a custom route to follow on your phone. It will just show you the more direct routes to your destination. To get around this, we had plotted a few stops along the way where we could fuel up either ourselves or the bikes, and sometimes both, all within around 1 hour of riding between them. The first stop was Brampton Hut Services on the junction where the A14 and A1 meet. This was arguably the hardest run of the day, as the air was particularly cold that morning and neither of us had thought to put any lining in our gloves. Luckily for her, Frey has heated grips. I, on the other hand, felt like my fingers were about to fall off. Luckily, after warming back up with a coffee, the sun came out a bit and we were off to our next stop along the M11 to fuel up the bikes, which does lead to another consideration that we have to keep in mind for these trips. My bike is a 2004 Kawasaki VN800, and according to the UK government's website, it is not suitable for E10 unleaded fuel, so must only be filled up with E5. The issue is that since September 2021, not all fuel stations carry E5, so I have to do some research ahead of time and find stations that offer super unleaded alongside the regular unleaded. Luckily, Frey's 1999 Yamaha Diversion is compatible with E10, so she can enjoy the cheaper, more plentiful fuel. Lucky her. We continued on along the M11 towards the M25 and noted that the motorway felt more like an old A road rather than a motorway. We also got to practice some filtering, which was caused by a lane closure seemingly due to a rather large pothole. Luckily, the sun was just about poking through the sky, so the air was a little warmer than it had been earlier. We joined the M25 and crossed the Dartford Bridge, although the heavy traffic and signs of stay in lane meant that we took the time to enjoy the views rather than filtering through the queues. We jumped on the A2 until it became the M2 and stopped off for lunch at Chatham. After that, it was just over an hour's ride to our destination in Romney Marsh, along some much more interesting roads than what we had encountered so far. Although I was less able to enjoy the ride, as for a significant period I had a large SUV seemingly trying to jump onto my back seat. We arrived at our destination and stopped at the nearby farmhouse to pick up the key to the church. The sign encourages you to take it back and specifically tells you not to knock on the door, just to make sure you take it back. And it really is a proper looking key. Just look at that. Nice and weighty too. So we made it.
We're here.
Not the most exciting of rides.
No, this last bit was good.
There it is.
There it is.
Thing we're looking for.
Point 1.
Point 1 of 12. We said that this would be the hardest one because it's January.
Yep.
And we're not sure because in December it's the Lake District. I think what we both learned is glove liners.
Oh yes.
And maybe another layer or two.
Maybe extra socks as well.
Yeah, that's a good shout. It looks like a couple of people parked up over there. There's another car parked up over there. Plenty of places to come and park up to have a look.
Yeah.
Oh wow, right on the water, look.
There you go. Was it a satisfying lock?
Maintenance of this ancient church is a heavy drain on the tiny population it serves. Please give as generously as you can. Other people have taken that to mean scratch your initials in the door.
Of course they have.
People and booklets.
Ben's having trouble with the locks these days.
No, I'm not sure what's happening there.
Okay.
I need to get it out. Let's push it all the way through. All the way out. Okay. There we go.
You take that. Are you sure it's definitely not that?
Just me. I'm just terrified of breaking it. You know what I'm like.
Oh no. It does require a little lift.
Oh, it's there, I suppose.
Okay.
There you go. It's so very quiet. This is the church as it appears in the calendar, and this is the photo we took while we're there. One down. We think that judge for yourself. We think that photo is pretty close to what it was. I want to read some information.
Ooh, okay.
Around the church. Let's have the church. Let's face this way, so we have a nice view of the church. Maybe a bit of water in the background.
Would you like a little microphone, like a newsreader?
So this is an area called Fairfield. You won't see any signs for Fairfield on the roads because the village doesn't exist anymore.
Oh.
The church is dedicated to St Thomas Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury, from 1162 until his murder in 1170. Ooh.
Join us next week.
in a more exciting story is that legend has it the Archbishop was journeying across the dangerous Romney Marsh, which is where we are, when he fell into one of the many ditches. He prayed to St Thomas. Just in time, a farmer arrived to save him, and in gratitude, the Archbishop had the little church built and dedicated to St Thomas Becket.
Can I just pause you there?
You can.
My arm is hurting.
Okay. Apparently this was built sometime around 1200 AD. 1912, the fabric was in very poor state and a complete rebuilding within the timber framework took place. However, the inside of the church was fortunately left untouched. The sheep around here are some of the most successful and important breeds of sheep. Their main characteristic is an ability to feed in wet situations, where they're considered to be more resistant to foot rot and internal parasites than any other breed. Sheep from this area, Romney sheep, have been exported globally, in particular to Australia, since 1872, although citation is needed for that. So that's the church.
We're going to pan round to the famous sheep.
Famous Romney sheep.
Yes. There you go, and you can end the video on that beautiful photo right there.
Beautiful photo there.
Yeah. Okay.
Once we left the site and returned the key, obviously, the last bit of battery in the camera died on our way to Ashford to fill up before heading along the motorways to our hotel stop in High Wycombe. So that's the first of 12 trips in the bag, and despite being very cold for most of the weekend, we did enjoy our trip out. It certainly isn't a route we'll be encouraging others to do, but if anyone in the southeast is looking for an excuse to get out and about on the bikes, St Thomas Becket Church in Fairfield is a destination that we would certainly recommend. We got very lucky with the weather as we had no rain, got a little bit of sun and no wind at all. And we have learned that glove liners will be required for the next trip, as well as putting on an additional pair of socks. Some spare batteries for the camera would also be a good idea. Which leaves us with the next destination in February being Bamford Edge in the Peak District. We've had a bit of a look through this Bikers Britain book and found a good route that we can have a go at while we're up there, so hopefully we'll get lucky with the weather next month. Like I said at the start of this video, we do these trips just whenever we can fit them in. So to make sure you catch the next video, please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. And do give us a like if you've liked this one. See you next month, and don't forget your glove liners.